Hello, and welcome to Mechwarrior Online during this holiday season. Today, I want to talk about the skill tree. Specifically, the skill tree in regards to ATMs and LRMs. I'm not going to talk about streaks because we all know that we don't talk about streaks on this channel. And SRMs, because SRMs are kind of more in the regard of like a shotgun. They're a straight fire, straight shoot, and they're great for tearing armor off of other mechs. So today we're just going to talk about guided weapons in the regards of ATMs and LRMs. Now, ATMs aren't available on Intersphere mechs, and of course MRMs aren't available on clan mechs, so there's kind of different little trade-offs here and there. But in regards to the clan mechs and the Intersphere mechs, as far as LRMs, it's going to be pretty similar as far as it goes. So I'm going to start off by showing you this guy here. This is one of my more beautiful little mechs, and this is a guy I refer to as Rain and Thunder. And this is an ATM build, but you can also run this as an LRM build. And ironically, I pretty much run the skill set pretty much the same with one caveat. Let me show you the mech. So this is a build where it's got 2 ATM 9s and 2 ATM 6s. So for all intents and purposes, this is an ATM build. It does have some other weapons on here that are great for self-defense, and having self-defense weapons is kind of important. But as you can see, this thing is set up the way it is. And it runs fairly cool, 1.36. Now, 1.36 on a laser build would be pretty good. On a ballistics build, it would be probably very good, or at least wonderful. I have Vera, my Marauder 3R, and I consider 1.35 to be a gift. Excuse me. And so the firepower on this particular build is 84. 84 is a number you're going to see a lot in my heavies and large, or heavy and assault mechs. So the way this thing is set up with the skill tree, it kind of, the skill tree, as you would expect, is designed around the particular mech's abilities. Now, most of my mechs have a few things in common, and one of those things in common is they're typically Omni Poot builds, and they're usually pushed all around to get the proper build that I want. And that's why I buy a lot of clan mechs that have Omni Poots. Intersphere mechs do not have Omni Poots, which is a crying shame, because I think you should be able to take, you know, the torso from an A1 on a catapult and put it on a C4. That just makes perfect sense to me. I don't know why you can't do that. It doesn't make any sense, but it's what it is in the game, I guess. So this one here has the ability for clan PPC. It has ATM velocity improvements, range. So obviously this is a given to run this as an ATM build. But a lot of mechs aren't going to have those kind of quirks built in. So let's talk about the skill tree. So this is an assault mech, and it runs guided missiles, ATM specifically. So when I do an ATM build, it's slightly different than what I run for an LRM build. And I'll show you what I mean. It comes down to, basically for me, the difference is target decay. Now, the reason I don't have target decay set up on this is because ATMs are more of a direct fire, direct point of view, direct, if you can see it, you can shoot it kind of thing, as long as it's within range. Now, target decay is about being able to keep the target lock even when the enemy goes into cover. And the problem with that on an ATM build is ATM missiles, when you go back to their main features, they have, you know, optimum and maximum range, projectile speed, spread, increase, blah, 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 blah. Now, let's just throw an LRM on here just for the giggles. So I put an LRM in here. So these are what you see when you see an LRM build, you know, is max range, optimum range, projectile speed, missile spread, for indirect and direct fire. Now, indirect fire is when it has to go up and over something a little bit. Direct fire is point blank kind of viewing where, you know, they're right in front of you. You can see them, they can see you, or you can see them and maybe they don't see you. And the spread is significantly less. But if it has to go up and over a target a little bit, that would be considered indirect. And so that's what that is. Now, when these missiles fire, what you're going to see is the missiles going out, up a little bit, and then down a little bit, but not by a large margin. Now, when you look at an LRM feature here, you have 2 velocities. Now, remember, once we go back to looking at this, we have a projectile speed of 242. And velocity and speed are going to be kind of the same, but not exactly. But, and let me show you what I mean by that. So, you have a velocity of indirect, which is 190. Now, what this is referring to is that on LRMs, they have a tendency to go up high and then come back down almost in a 75-degree angle, or even a little bit higher if you're in an Intersphere mech. Intersphere mechs do this really, really well. Somebody can be up against a building, and you can still hit them, even if it's fairly tall, and still do some damage. And you're going to hit them, of course, with all the missiles at once, because that's the way they work. If you fire an LRM-15 at a target in an Intersphere mech, all 15 missiles are going to strike the intended target at the same time, or the targets around it, for that matter, at the same time. This is not the case on clan mechs. On clan mechs, everything comes out in a stream of bullets, or, if you will, like a barrage, an indirect barrage. So, the first missile's gonna hit, and then all the other ones are gonna hit after it, in succession, almost like they're all in a line. Whereas in a Intersphere mech, when you fire them, you'll see that they all go out at the same time, and they all hit at the same time in that given weapon. Now, if you do an alpha strike and you fire all your weapons, all your missiles at once, all of them will go out at the same time, and you'll see this big hornet's net, or like a bee's whatever, you know, a big circular pattern of all the missiles coming in. You won't see a stream of them coming out like the way a machine gun would. So with an LRM, LRMs have direct and indirect. Now at direct fire, which is just the same way that ATMs work, they go straight out towards the target, and for the most part they don't deviate in their direction. They deviate a little bit by going up a little bit and then coming down a little bit. So if you're like, as an example, at Crimson Strait, and you're in that tunnel, if you can do direct fire or direct velocities, you can fire and hit people in the tunnel with that. And I've had people say to me, "How come you're bringing an LRM boat into the tunnel?" I was like, "Well, because if you're close enough, the missiles go straight at them as if they were SRMs or ATMs, and they don't go up and over or anything, because there's nothing to go up and over as long as there's nothing in your path." Now, if there's somebody in your path, or you're at a certain distance, I think it's like 500 meters away or more. I think it's right around, actually, I think it's right around 600 meters. Anyway, the missiles will try to go up, and so they're just going to run into the ceiling, and then you're not going to get any missiles on target, probably. So that's something to keep in mind. But anyways, yeah, so LRMs have a tendency to go up and over things quite well. And that's one of the reasons LRMs are so deadly on the battlefield. ATMs don't do that as much. ATMs, I look at ATMs kind of like they're like almost like shotguns that are guided. It's like a guided shotgun round is the way I look at an ATM. And that's probably the reason I run a lot of ATM builds. I used to run a lot more LRM builds, but this is how I run things now. So we're just going to reset this guy back and going to the skill tree. So target decay on an LRM boat is absolutely a must. So if I was running an LRM build, I would absolutely, positively, without a doubt, have target decay set to the maximum, because I want to be able to hold that target as long as possible, so even after he goes into cover, I can still fire missiles on him for an extra 2, maybe 3 seconds. And I can get weapons on him. On an ATM build, once he goes into cover, all you're doing is basically wasting ammo at that point, because the ATMs are not going to go up and over the top of a target very well, especially on an inner spear mech. So one thing you'll see on almost every single one of my LRM builds is you'll see target decay attached. If it's an ATM build, you'll never see this. This will never be attached on any of my builds, and it's been my experience that when I have this on here or I don't have this on here, it doesn't make much of a difference. And even when I don't have this, you have a little bit of target decay on your builds, as long as it's not a stealth build or a well, stealth build, it wouldn't matter. But if it doesn't have ECM, you're going to get some target decay on them, and it doesn't really even matter, because all you're basically doing is just firing weapon to fire weapon. You're not going to hit anything. You're not going to do any damage, because they've already gone into cover. But if it's an LRM build, absolutely, you're going to do damage for a brief amount of time, and it's very brief. But that target decay increases that brief time. So let's start off at the beginning. So on all my missile builds that are related to LRMs and ATMs, I absolutely max out on range. I want as much range as I possibly can, because that means I can strike further out and do damage at a further distance. Not to mention, it helps with your sensors a little bit to be able to see at a further distance. Now, something you'll see that I do quite often, it's not on this particular build. For what reason, I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, let's just strip some of that off. There we go. Put that on. Now, this is a missile build. It's not a ballistics or a laser build, but why would you have advanced zoom on here? And the reason is because one of the things I like to do with having the extra range, the advanced zoom and the range work together in hand. And what I like to do is I like to be able to fire my missiles without a lock, especially on my ATM builds. If I can see somebody that's sniping, or maybe somebody who's unaware of me being able to see them, I like to fire my missiles at them without having a missile lock. And the benefit of that is they don't know the missiles are coming. And so if I have advanced zoom, it allows me to focus in on them and get a really good shot and get as many missiles on target as possible using that advanced zoom. And that's why I put advanced zoom on a lot of my ATM builds. On my LRM builds, it's hit and miss. Depends on the mech and depends on the playstyle of that mech for me. So range is a must. So even if you don't have a lock, it's great to have the range so that you have the ability to get your weapons that far down range. And it also helps for your LRMs, or I mean for your lasers and your ballistics as well, obviously. It helps for your Narc as well, and I think it actually helps a little bit for tag, but I'm not entirely certain. I don't use tags, so I don't know. That's right, I have LRMs and ATMs, and I never use tag, ever. I find it cumbersome. It doesn't have very good range on it. If my missiles, my least skilled mech with missiles has a range of 900 meters. And the maximum on tag, I think, is like 690. I think on some builds you can get as much as 720 range, which doesn't even cover the range of that. I think the tag should be equal to the distance of the missile fired, but you know, I also think that a lot of weird things as well. So heat on this one. Now, this mech here, 1.36. Oh, that's perfect. You don't need any heat dissipation or heat generation control. Yes, you do, because you're going to be firing these weapons constantly. You're going to be firing them as fast as you possibly can, so I put some heat on here. Velocities. Yeah, it does have velocities, and this does help a little bit. What velocity does for you is it gets the weapons there sooner. It's like FedEx Express Mail, and that's why I put it on. Missile packs, absolutely a must. Extra ammo reduces the spread, so it makes it more into a cluster than spread out. And then the high explosive, which just has a tendency to do a little bit more critical damage if the missile crits. Skeletal density, absolutely a must on every mech I have. Armor hardening, yes. Now, this mech has a tendency to do a little bit of tanky work. And on mechs where I think I'm going to be in direct fire, especially ATM builds, because you need to be more, not necessarily in the front line, but you're going to spend time in front of the target so you can fire your ATM missiles. Once again, I look at these things like they're shotguns. So I put a little bit more reinforcement on some mechs than others. This is something you're going to commonly see on my light mechs and my assault mechs. But my mediums and my heavies, reinforced casing, I don't really usually run that very much. AMS overload, you know, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's for your AMS, for killing missiles coming in. As many missiles as I fire, I like to have few of them hitting me. So cool run and heat containment. Let's talk about these for a second. Cool run and heat containment, I see these as additional survival. This is more survivability. This is kind of like protecting you from yourself. Even at a 1.35 or 1.36 that this mech's heat management is, which is extremely good. Anything above 1.25 is good. And when you get above 1.3, that's great. And if you can get to 1.4 or above, that's awesome. And so even on those builds, I run the cool run and heat containment. Sun Spiders have a tendency to run extremely cool, considering what they are. They're basically just like any other mech, except they have their arm weapons way up high above the cockpit. But even as cool as they run, I still have this on there because I can still get into really heavy heat modes on those mechs. Target info gathering, absolutely a must. Only for this. Target info gathering is great to get the info. I'm not so concerned about what kind of weapons they have on their mech. Is more concerned about where they're damaged. But I mainly go for this because I want the seismic. If you're a missile build, you're basically a standing platform. You're not going to be doing a lot of running around because you want to try and keep your enemies in target. So you're not going to spend a lot of your time moving around quite as much. You want to get targets of opportunity and help your teammates lay damage down. You want a lot of kills, get a ballistics build or a missile build, or a laser build. If you have an energy build or a ballistics build, you can have a lot of fun doing those. I spend most of my time trying to do as much damage to the other team as I can with missiles, and that helps my teammates get kills as well. Do I get kills? Yeah, absolutely. I run a series of videos of kills of the week. So I do get quite a bit of kills, but I'm more interested in punishing the other team and keeping them either in cover or doing as much damage to them so that when my teammates come in contact with them, they can do more easy kills because they're already damaged. They're not meeting up with a fresh mech as often. So sensor range and ECM and radar controls and stuff. So I go with as much radar deprivation as I could get. If there's another skill for radar deprivation, I would get it. And your other players, I've actually watched a lot of other people that I play with when they do videos on YouTube with their features. They don't max out on radar deprivation. I can't understand this. This is like a free blanket of protection to protect you from being targeted as easily and as well. A lot of people, they negate this, and I consider this like free armor. It's like a blanket that protects you. When you go out of direct line of sight, they lose missile lock just as quickly. They don't see you as fast, and if you're running and you're hurt, this is a huge benefit to have. We talked about the advanced zoom. On some of my missile boats, a lot of my missile boats, I run Narc, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So auxiliary for consumables, I run 2 cool shots and a UAV. That is a pretty standard thing that you'll see across the board on my missile builds. So we've talked about the majority of what I talk about or what I do on these, and you're going to see that this skill tree is very universal across the board. So we talked about an assault mech. Let's go down to a traditional missile build. So here's an example, one of my Nova Cats, and you can see I got 2 of them. They're slightly different, but they're basically identical. So this has 5 LRM-15s, 2 ER medium lasers for self-defense, and it has Narc. So I want to talk about that one now. Now I'm running all the original Omnipods on this, so I'm taking advantage of all the quirks that this thing is capable of. You know, energy cooldown, range, target decay information, blah blah blah. Missile heat generation, base armor, features like that. So let's go to the skill tree and talk about this. Now this is one of my what I call a Narc build, and you're going to see some really similar stuff across the board from the assault mech. So ranges maxed out again, heat, velocity. I'm all about getting those missiles downrange as quickly as possible and doing as much damage as I possibly can. And so missile features, armor hardening and densities, a little bit of reinforcement because I'm not going to spend as much time tanking with other mechs. I'm going to keep my distance and try to do as much damage as I can at distance. A little bit of overheat damage protection because this mech actually does get pretty hot. Look at this. The heat management is 1.46. Oh, you don't need any kind of additional skills for that. Yeah, you do. Because I'm going to be doing volley after volley after volley after volley. Just boom, 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 boom. First of all, look at how many tons of ammo I have here. On this build, I have 13 tons of LRM missiles. I think this particular one here, no, this one's 12, that's right. I have 12 tons of missiles, which works out to right around 3,300 missiles, I think it is, and I still have 5 double heat sinks because this thing does get really hot. Some of the builds I have of this one I've run in the past where I only have 2 double heat sinks on board, and then I've got 3,800 missiles, and I use them. I've run out of ammo several times. So I'm not spending a lot of time directly in the line of sight of mechs. They definitely know I'm there though, because I'm firing missile volley after missile volley all over and over again, and that's why I have overheat damage on there. Notice a consistency. You're not going to see a lot of my missile builds having speed tweaks or speed skills. Once again, this is survivability to me. Seismic sensor, because you're a standing platform, you want to be able to detect mechs coming up on you. Look, here we are. LRM build with target decay. It's a must. You know, just being able to keep that lock while I'm firing my missiles, so I can just keep spraying missiles in, because sometimes what happens is they'll come back into target lock, and maybe they charge you or something, you know, which is foolish, but whatever. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That allows you to keep getting missiles downrange, and when you get that target lock again with missiles you've already got in the air, then those missiles are going to change direction and grab onto him and hit him. That doesn't happen as often with ATMs, but it does happen. So, Narc. Narc is enhancement. This increases the projectile speed and the duration of the lock. So this is going to stay on them longer with these 2 skills added to it. And it's going to increase the speed that it gets to hit the mech. Now these things are slow. And I mean like they're slow. Like a, I would say they're slow like a autocannon 20. You can see this thing flying through the air the whole distance. If it's not incredibly busy, you can see the whole flight of this thing going to the enemy. So it's better for hitting a stagnant target, but once again, if the target is moving, you got to lead your target a little bit. Makes me think of Full Metal Jacket. That was so wrong. Anyways, so this is another LRM skill tree build here. Now, the one thing we haven't talked about is Sper mechs. Now, I don't have a lot of LRM boats or SRM builds on Sper mechs. And it's not because they're completely inferior to it. It's just the clan mechs, I'm used to them. I understand them, and they make more sense to me. And to touch on that briefly, we'll just do this. This is a LRM-15. It takes 2 slots. It weighs 3.5 tons, and it does 15 damage. Moving on. We go to our Sper counterpart. This is an LRM-15. It takes 3 slots versus the 2, and instead of weighing 3.5 tons, it weighs 7 tons, and it does 15 damage. It takes up more space, it weighs significantly more, and it only does the same amount of damage. However, the difference between this weapon on the Sper mech and the difference on the clan mech is what I touched on earlier. On the clan mech, it fires them all out in a succession, or what they call sickle rate. Sper missiles don't have sickle rate. They don't have it whatsoever. What they have is they fire all their missiles at the same time so that all their missiles hit the target at the same time. They may not hit in the same place, but they are definitely going to hit at the same time. And that makes them a lot more deadly, in my opinion. And the reason is because you're not hitting a stationary target most of the time. You're typically hitting a target that's trying to run for cover, or they're trying to run at you. And so there is a difference between the two, and as far as which one is better, for me, it comes down to the clan mech, and the reason is because it comes down to weight and space. I cannot build a LRM-15 mech that has 5 of those on there, or 6 of those on there, or 8 of those on there. They just don't simply have one that I can do that on yet. So you might be able to do it on a couple of assaults, but for pound and space for space, you will never have a missile boat that is more powerful than a clan mech. Sper mechs are just incapable of doing it. They take up way too much space. They weigh too much. And for the feature of the complete barrage, like a shotgun where it fires all and you hit and all targets hit at the same time, that is a benefit. But I haven't found a single Sper mech that I can duplicate the Novacat B as far as 6 LRM-15s on it or 4 LRM-20s on it onto a Sper mech. You're going to be hard pressed to find a Sper mech that has 6 LRM-15s on it, and it still has full armor and ammo available to fire the weapon. It's just really tough. But once again, there's a trade-off. And with the target moving a lot, the LRMs coming in on a clan mech are going to hit in several different places, and a lot of times may not even hit at all. They're just going to hit ground because the target is moving. You do have a lock on them, but that does not guarantee that every single one of them is going to hit. So as they move into cover, even with a lock, it's going to hit the cover. It's going to hit this, and it's going to hit that. It's going to hit in a lot of different places. So even though this mech only has 4 LRM-15s, and the counterpart of this one would be easily the Hellfire, and they have very similar weapons on board. This has 4 LRM-15s and 4 ER medium lasers. And you can see this is pretty much maxed out as far as the closeness of weight, 60 tons. Not the same weight, obviously, but this is a 65-ton mech. It has 2 lasers on board versus the 4, and it still has 4 LRM-15s. And if you compare the two between the Hellfire and the Catapult, in a head-to-head battle of who's going to do the most damage, if they both had the same number of lasers on there, we'll just say that there's no lasers on either one of them, but they're maxed out as far as weight, so you can't do anything more to them. I think the catapult is going to do more damage overall because it has that benefit of being able to get all the fired weapons onto target with some degree of better. And it comes down to several different things between them. Once again, the LRMs that fire on an inner sphere mech have a tendency to go higher up and then come down at a higher arc. So if LRMs on a clan are fired, I think that they come down probably close to a 50 to 60 degree angle, which is pretty steep. But on a inner sphere mech, specifically on the catapults, when I've been firing these, I've had targets that are right against the structure, and they should be in full cover. And if I was in a clan mech, I would absolutely wouldn't do any damage. I might get 1 or 2 missile strikes if I'm lucky on them. But on my catapult, I just keep firing because I know I'm hitting it, and you can see the damage showing up on your reticule. But on if I'm driving a Hellfire, that's how I have to play the Hellfire different from this mech, is that between the two, I know on the Hellfire, I'm not going to hit him. But if I'm on my Inner Sphere mech with the Inner Sphere LRMs, I'm going to hit it. I'm going to hit him a lot more often. I may not hit him all the time, but there's a higher probability of hitting him on the catapult. So that's a benefit right there. So that puts you ahead of the curve on that. In addition, that brief amount of time where he comes out of cover to fire at me, if he comes directly out of fire for just a second, and I hit him with a barrage of these guys, because I'm firing these things in a cycle, so it's going 1, 2, 3, 4. But when I go 1, it's all 15 missiles fired at the same time. When I go to the Hellfire, it's going to fire 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It's going to fire them like that. Whereas this is 15, boom, 15, 15, 15. It's not the same on a clan, obviously, as I've discussed at length now. So there is some differences. And so that's why I give the nod for a similar build like this to the catapult, or specifically to the Inner Sphere mechs, because you can do significantly more damage for this build. Now, you don't have as much availability to put as many weapons on here, and could I scale down to a smaller engine? Absolutely. But this thing's already really slow. I mean, we're talking about a heavy mech that only does 64.8 kph. Now, that's the same speed as my Novacat B, but my Novacat B is doing way more damage. I mean, it only has one more LRM-15, but I have the ability to put 6 LRM-15s on there versus 4 LRM-15s on this. Even if this had the additional points, like if I was running the A1, which comes with 6 missile points, I still couldn't put 6 LRM-15s on there and still have armor and enough ammo to suffice. I tried it. I went all the way down to the lowest engine that I could find, and I was running around at like 39 kph, and I still wasn't gonna be able to put as many weapons down range as the Novacat B. But what you're getting out of the Inner Sphere mechs as far as the missile features outweighs the losses. In reality, you're doing more damage. Just like if you have LBX2s versus LBX10s, you can actually do more damage with LBX2s than you can with LBX10s because you can fire them faster. You have a faster rate of fire. The cooldown is significantly better. I've seen people do more damage on LBX2s than people who had the same build or same mech with LBX10s. It happens a lot. It only really benefits if you can get every single one of those targets on target. So once again, the skill tree on the Inner Sphere mech that I found that works the best. Maxed out on range, maxed out on heat, because this is 1.36. It's a hot build because it's firing all the missiles at the same time. It actually produces more heat that way. So Maxed out on heat, velocity, missile features. Starting to see a pattern. You know, the skeletal density, armor hardening. One, overheat, because I have a tendency to overheat this mech. It happens. Just flat out happens. Cool run, heat containment, seismic deprivation. You're seeing a pattern there. Now, the one thing I didn't do is I didn't do target decay, and the reason is because I needed more heat containment because this mech runs really hot. I had I learned on my A1, my catapult A1, that it run, even with as cool as it was running, it was still getting into overheat a lot. And so I started maxing out on heat generation, and it made that difference. So when I went to this mech here, I just transferred the skill tree basically across the board. So would I benefit from this? Absolutely. It would be a benefit. However, I would have to sacrifice my heat containment, my heat generation. So this is one of the few times you won't see target decay on a build. On the catapult, would it be beneficial? Yes, but it would be at the sacrifice of heat containment. So I couldn't make that decision. So that's why you don't even see these things as being unlocked, because I didn't even bother with it. And once I took this build out onto the market or out into the field, I saw that I made the right decision. Narc weighs a lot on Intersphere mech, so that's why I don't even have any of this unlocked. I've never even bothered. Besides, you have to sacrifice 15 damage downrange. That's a lot to sacrifice. You know, if I had a 6 build, yeah, I might consider it, but I've tried it on the A1, and you really need all that extra firepower. So once again, 2 cool shots and a UAV. UAVs allow you to get missiles downrange, so you can do more damage. And I've seen the trade-off as far as having artillery strike. You can do some damage if you get a really good artillery strike, but it's an if. And it's a if I have a choice between a UAV where I can definitely get damage downrange versus a artillery strike where I'm going to get some damage downrange or maybe none if they move out of it, because that pink smoke stands for a while, and I get out of the pink smoke pretty quickly in my mech, so I can only imagine other people are, especially if they're sacrificing some of the skills to go with speed. So yeah, so now that we've talked about these, let's go and talk about light mechs. Now, light mechs are a different breed, and pretty much all of my let's just go ahead and favorite these. All of my favorited missile boats have a tendency to be LRM or ATMs, but this guy is kind of special. This guy here, obviously, this is an SRM build, and the Jenner 2C, or what I refer to as Anubis, this guy just basically punishes. Long before the scale shot was on the battlefield, this walking toilet, and it does look like a walking toilet. Somebody told me about this in a match. It does exactly what it's intended to do. It basically just punishes the other team. You make the other team's lives suck. You can come up behind somebody and you can do one alpha strike, and then they start looking around for you, and then you can still get right in behind them and shoot them right in the butt again, and the next thing you know, they're a smoldering hill of destroyed metal on the ground. So yeah, you can do a lot of damage in these things. They're a lot of fun. So back to the lecture at hand. I go back and forth between running LRMs and ATMs on these. Lately I've been running ATMs on these because they are a lot of fun. And so let's take a look at what I refer to as Atterboy. Kind of a cute play on words. So 2 ATM 9s and 3 lasers. And this is the original Omni Poots. Why not? Missile cooldown, missile range, missile velocity, range. So that's additional missile range right there. Torso yaw, blah, 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 blah. Not a lot of weapons here. But do I regularly do over 500 damage on this build? Absolutely. And let me show you how. The skill tree. Now, when we look at this guy here, 1.36, that's a pretty common number for me. Not a lot of firepower, 54 damage. But instead of going max out on heat on this, because it's not running a lot of, I'm not running 4 ATMs or 4 LRMs. I'm just running a pair of ATMs or LRMs, whichever I'm running at the time. I'm not dealing with a lot of heat that's going to be generated over the course of time. I have to wait for the cooldown, so I increase the cooldown or decrease the cooldown period so I can fire more often on this build. And then once again, I only have 2 missile points instead of 3 or 4 or 6 or whatever. So I went with obviously more range, heat containment, velocity. I added some laser duration to shorten the duration of the burn. Once again, I'm only running 2 missiles on here, so I have I don't need to run as much heat containment. I don't need to do as much in other regards. I'm going to be firing from a distance. So I've got my missile rack features and missile spread and high explosive, which just has better crit chance. I'm not going to get directly into the line of fire and tank with people, because you can't do that on a Sper mech. You just don't simply have enough armor. Unless you're you're attacking directly with like a machine guns like a Piranha or a Commando or something, and you can move around really, really quickly. I'm not really good at doing that. I'm more of a heavy and assault mech kind of guy. So when I get into these guys, I try to keep my distance, land damage, and do my attrition fighting. And when I drive these little guys, it's all about attrition. I want to do damage over time. So skeleton density, yes. Armor hardening, yes. Reinforced casing, it's wasted skills. Honestly, it's just it's not gonna do enough to help you. If you're getting right in and on target with people, yeah, maybe, but I'm not gonna do that. That's not my play style on light mechs. Cool run, heat containment, absolutely. Seismic sensor, deprivation, advanced zoom, because once again I like to fire my ATMs without a target lock, and I want to make sure I get as good of a position on my weapons. So on this, I am running 2 cool shots in a UAV, but I also enhance the duration of the UAV for a little bit longer period of time, so that way I have more time to get weapon on target, or my team does. So I went with laser duration, which is something that's kind of an anomaly on a lot of my LRM or ATM builds, and the reason is because I only have 2 missiles missile points that I'm firing with. So I wanted to shorten the amount of time that I have to stand in fire with that, and if I could, I would have done this as well, but I just simply couldn't do it. So that's this particular build. Now let's go over and look at the Cougar. So this is the Cougar E, and the loadout on this guy here, once again, 2 ATM-9s, 3 ER medium lasers. And once again, it has all the same skills. So, or similar skills. So these are very similar mechs, obviously. But what's different about this one is I went with full, when you look at the build, the other one was 1.36 with the same number of weapons. 2 ATM-9s, 3 ER medium lasers. But this one, the heat containment on this one, because of the skills, or the quirks, is 1.49. Same amount of damage, 54 damage as before, but 1.49. So this thing runs significantly cooler than the other one. So when we go to skills, you're going to see that. So what did I do on this one? I went with full range, no heat generation, but I did go with velocity, missile features, all this and this. But with this one here, I have a tendency, for whatever strange reason I haven't been able to fathom, to spend more time in direct line of sight of the enemy. Because I can fire my lasers more often and my missiles with without as much heat buildup on it. You would think I would add a additional cool run on it so that I could fire them more often. But what happens typically is I actually take advantage of my mech's ability to have a better heat management. And instead of firing my lasers 1, 2, 3, I fire them all 3 at the same time. And a lot of times I fire both my ATMs at the same time as well. So I'm doing alpha strikes on this mech more often than not. So I did add a little bit of more overheat damage control. And this one here, I do have target decay on this because I probably forgot and left it on here. So I could probably just take this off. And where would I put these additional 5? Well, I would put one of them into this so that I can fire without a lock. And then I would probably put the rest maybe into this feature here so that I can fire them more often. So I guess I totally forgot about that from the last time I was running LRMs on it. This shows that I ran LRMs on this recently. But once again, now we're back. Our target decay is gone because it's not going to really matter much on an ATM build. But I've got advanced zoom, full radar deprivation, which is the way I look at it. I never mention sensor range. Because if I'm maxed out on range, the sensor range and my range of my weapons never equals the same number. It's just kind of annoying. I think your missile range should dictate your sensor range. It should be the same thing. So this is all fairly similar to most of my ATM builds, with some caveats. This mech, I typically just do alpha strikes. I fire both my ATM 9s at the same time, and all 3 of my lasers at the same time. So that makes the difference between these. So when you basically look at going across the board of my mechs, you're going to see a lot of the similar things. Here we go, we got a Hunchback 2C. You're going to see the same skill tree. This one here is running ATM 9. So this skill tree and this skill tree are going to be very identical. This skill tree here on this ATM build is going to be very similar to most of my other ATM builds, like my like Morpheus, my ambush, my ATM ambush, and this ATM build over here. The only time you're going to see a difference is when I'm running my LRM builds. I've tried running ATMs on these. Does it work? Yeah, but it runs really, really hot, and I have a tendency to explode way more often, so I don't. So I run all my Nova Cats with LRMs, and my Night Gyre, I go back and forth between LRMs and ATMs on this, and honestly, more often than not, I like the LRMs on the Night Gyre more. But on my Hellfire, absolutely, all LRMs all day long. On my Catapult, LRMs all day long because ATMs aren't an option. And if they were an option, I probably would still run with LRMs on this anyways. But yeah, so between the Inner Sphere and the Clan, are there a lot of difference in the weapons? Absolutely. But as far as the skill tree goes, they're basically identical. And once again, going back and looking at it, look at it. It's pretty much across the board. I maxed out on heat, which is different, I guess, than my Clan counterparts, but it's because of the way the weapon fires, and this is just it works out really well. So, in closing, I hope you have a good holiday season, and I hope you consider getting either a Inner Sphere or a Clan missile boat. As long as you're running a missile boat, that's the only thing that really matters to me. And you know, they both have their pros and cons. I think as far as the remaining weapons that Inner Sphere have, none of them really benefit my playstyle. And the reason I went with the Catapult is this thing is an iconic build. This is as iconic as a Catapult is, or a Mad Cat, or the Atlas. These things are just, it's what they are. It's totally iconic. By the way, when you buy one of these things, you get this free pattern with the mech anyways. It's just available on certain Inner Sphere mechs. So my A1 and my C4 are identical looking. Have a good time and hope to see you on the battlefield.